So, grimoires. Let's get to grimoires because grimoires are kind of special for me. I have a whole altar right there dedicated to the Black Book, where I have Saint Cyprian's Black Book, and I have other black books of that nature, like the Black Book that showed up in the Ninth Gate. It's kind of like a thing for me because my godfather gave me a black book 22 years ago, and I have it right here. Wasn't like this originally. It was hardbound. I took the hardbound out and I used it to do a couple of copies of some classics like Mastering Witchcraft and what was the other one, Necronomicon. I printed those on parchment paper and hardbound those. So I used this artist rendition of a leather cover made by her, 2007, and so that's what it looks like now. It looks like the opening of the Necronomicon. Now, what is a grimoire? What is that? It's basically the source code for a sorcerer. It's where the sorcerer would put all his spells, all the things that he's learned, practice different ciphers, things of that nature in different languages. So my godfather gave me this when I was initiated, before I got the advanced initiation, which is the high priesthood initiation, which is the third degree, the one that gives you the right to use implements to sacrifice. But anyway, so he gave me this, he gave me some prescriptions at the beginning of it, so I'll show you some of the prescriptions, but it's in Spanish, but I still remember them to this very day, and he wrote this right there. This is a writing. Can't see that too well, but yeah, that's him. He wrote that. That represents his spirit, which he called sinister. And so there he's recognizing me as a priest. Yeah, and that's his writing. And he had basic advice for me. So that is what I follow. And so he just kind of did that, and this is the representation of my name that he gave me, the first name. The second name was a more advanced name, which is the one I use, but it's a sigil representing what my name was, my original name, which is he who contemplates fire that emerges from water. So that's Usamba que va cuenda lango dumbe. That's kind of like what he called it. So let me show you, and this is his last advice, right there. And so let me show you what I did, because he just gave me a basic open-ended book for me to fill, right? That was the whole purpose of it. Saying, this is what we do, this is how we've always done it, and now it's your turn. And so this is how I filled it. I don't know how anybody else filled it. This is how I filled it. So it gives you an idea what a traditional sorcerer would do, right? In his grimoire. So I made different illustrations, and they don't look as nice as they used to, but they're still there. And I set up different oracles, right? And this one is the oracle of the Logun, or the Kori shells, which I will show at some point in the future. Get into oracles and what's the point of oracle later, but it gives you also, I got into the I Ching, so I wrote oracle for the I Ching. What does the I Ching mean? And different, Because I'll just give you the skinny of oracles, right? Oracles are just kind of like the Google for sorcerers of the day. And that's basically what it is, you know, just using serendipity to kind of help you to figure out a pathway, you know, obtain information. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, the everything the sorcerer does is technical, and so it's fair to say that tantra, which is kind of like technology, is kind of like a derivation, if you will. These are just some sayings from the Hermetic tradition I wrote down. So I just kind of like, and here's some script and some spell suggestion. So yeah, it's just magical squares. Basically, it's, in order for you to create something new, you have to be able to go through everything that's ever been created. And the last master artists that were able to do that were the likes of Picasso and Dali, the Spaniards. So, but the idea is that you have to be able to understand everything that ever was. Ficino understood everything that ever was, so he was able to create a renaissance, right? And that's the whole point of it. So this is the use. There's runes, and so runic script, and then the laws of magic, basic laws. And it's basically just a summary of everything. And this is a bit of Greek there, because I got into everything in different languages. This is some Italian to an ode to Diana. So I got into Italian as well. I read Italian in school, like Dante's Inferno and Machiavelli's Prince. So yeah, I did a little bit of that, a bit of the Ninth Gate, because I'm pretty much a fan of that, and that kind of Gnostic take of the Ninth Gate. The Ninth Gate takes, because the ending castle scene is Quivert Castle, and Quivert Castle is a Gnostic castle. It was one of the last Gnostic Cathar strongholds. My godfather wrote this. That's a symbol for, in our tradition, for God. Sambia, right? And this is a basic prayer to invoke what they call a good prayer, Chiche. And these are the different symbols, different powers of the tree of life in our tradition. So this is a bit of vocabulary, you know, to understand fauna and flora. So, and then anatomy, bit of anatomy, as far as like, you know, the tongue that the slaves brought with them, and so forth. So just to understand some of the patois, you know, that they brought with them. This is one of the mothers in my tradition, which is basically Venus. So that was the version of her that I have in the temple, and my godfather made for me. Cauldron, if you will, a witch pot. It's kind of like a more elaborate form of egregore. It's an egregore that follows one of the powers in the tree of life. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to get too deep into that. More numbers and things of that nature. And basic cowrie shell oracle and how it's used. What does it mean? More sigils, and what are the purpose of the sigils, and we can get into that later. More spell suggestions and signs. What did the signs mean as far as like the cowrie shell signs? So yeah, this is what sorcerer does, right? Builds this up with different understandings, and different rituals for different powers and things of that nature, and different suggestions for different spells and things of that nature. So there's all that. A bit of a coffin spell there for you goths that like coffins. More spells. So you gotta have your spells in there, right? So there's plenty of spells. Runes, some runes, and some more spells. Yeah, so, and then I get a little bit to tarot because I've always been into the tarot since the days of the Satanic Panic. And tarot is really my first. Not really, my first was my grandpa bought me the Ouija board, 1982. That was my first one. A minor arcana. So you got the major arcana and the minor arcana. I argue Chino, since I mentioned him, was the one that created the tarot, but he didn't apply his name to it because back then you could end up under the nose of the Inquisition, so he was careful. So, here's the pentagram. There's some parchments I got way back in the day when I was stationed in Maryland. I went by a New Age shop and I got those. So, different planetary sigils. See? And that's another one of those parchments I got from that New Age place. More planetary sigils. And chakras and their meaning and all that. So yeah, these are different sigils for the different powers and so forth. And I have, of course, the Baphomet here, and a bit of a Gnostic Mass and then some more sigils. So, and of course I have writings here, and wrote different things, secrets and things of that nature. So just sigils and more sigils, and yeah, it's just to practice that, right? And this is a bit of the Arawak Pantheon, and this is a bit of a wood block from back in the day. Wrote it, printed on parchment of Witches Gathering. It's gotten a little wet, so this is the Tree of Life, and what I place in the different parts of the Tree of Life, right? So, Tree of Life is the foundation of everything, foundation of it all, right? And so yeah, sorcery is kind of complex, right? So all I'm doing is just trying to break it down in ways that make sense, in ways that anybody could use, so to speak. I'm talking about the goats, right? Not just anybody, but the goats. But there's some more sigils and a little bit of Pythagoras there, because, you know, for me, he was kind of important. Some more spells, because you gotta have those spells. Another spell, and different herbs and what they're good for, because I was much into herbalism while I was on the island. Some more spells and some more sigils. Sigils are really important in the tradition, and so I made sure to get some of those sigils that you can see there, because they're kind of in this kind of like a Tree of Life, a more simplified form of it. Some more sigils. So yeah, and it's just sigils and more sigils, and sigils upon sigils, and very complex sigils that they have. Africans were not dumb, right? So we got the Schrodinger's equation, because I had to get into quantum physics. There's just no way I could. There's no way you can get deep into this stuff without getting into quantum physics and holography and all this other stuff. It's just impossible, okay? I'll just tell you right out. The Zoroaster oracles, because those are oracles too. And this is the foundation, the cross of the sorcerer. And so I got some more sigils here, very complex sigils. They have different meanings according to what part of the tree of life they belong to. Right? It's very complicated stuff. And yeah, the Afro-Caribbeans have very complicated sigils and meanings and pathways, and just as complicated and complex as anything that you would find in China or in India, right? Just as complex, just as elaborate, just as powerful, right? So I have nothing but respect for them. Anyway, so last but not least, I have some spells back here that I have bound. They've been there for the longest time. So yeah, this is what a grimoire looks like. I've had this for over 22 years, filled it up. I got some other things here that I can't show. Somebody came all the way from the Caribbean to be initiated. Anyway, yeah, so there's that, and next time we'll figure something else out, right? That's how we'll do it.